Gonna turn up just a.
Hello there, everyone. How are you? That was a fast intro today. I hope you guys are all doing well. I'm so excited because today I actually have a guest. I'm sure the last couple weeks you've been sick of just hearing and seeing me. But today I have an awesome guest for you, one of our sales reps in Michigan, my home state where I grew up. And next week, we are going to try to redo our conversation with the sales manager for Frey. So hopefully that comes through and we can have that conversation next week. Join us. If you saw my show a couple weeks ago about Frey, I'm still using their products and loving them. And so is my whole family and now my friends. They're awesome. So check out the episode a couple weeks ago. Join us again next week to listen to the sales manager conversation as well. And with that, we're going to go ahead and jump in with Annette. Let's see here. Hello there. How are you?
Hey, Camille, how are you?
I'm great. Thank you so much for joining us today.
My pleasure.
So, you are in Michigan, my hometown, my home state. And I tried to go back there, but my husband said no. And I still miss it. But go ahead and I'm going to have you start off by telling us a little bit about yourself. Well, maybe we should start with where exactly your territory is that you represent.
So I do the lower part of Southwest Michigan, so like the little corner of Michigan, and then I go kind of down and across the top of Indiana. So I do kind of, I guess it would be Northeast Indiana. So a little loop down there.
Very nice. So go ahead and tell us your background and some info about yourself and how and why you got into this crazy industry.
Well, a long time ago, I took a test at I was fresh out of college, and it was called a PIC test. And essentially what it is was testing like whether or not you had the true ability to be a salesperson. And so there were like 20 of us in this room that took this test. And so when I got done and they said, come on over here, we're going to have you go sit over there. And so there was me and one other person. And then as I was sitting in the room, I saw all the other people walking outside. And so it just kind of goes to my theory, however that test works, that you're born a salesperson. And so I would probably say my first real experiences selling were like Girl Scout cookies. And I was always number one in my troop because I was super motivated. And so I've always really kind of, I've loved selling, and I find myself at different times in my life when I'm trying to convince people in my life to do things, I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm doing the salesman's pitch right now.
Yeah, it's just it's ingrained in you.
Exactly. But so out of college, I went to work for a food broker. And that was when the grocery industry was kind of doing what the gift industry and other industries have done. And so I joked with that company. I worked for them for 11 years. And through that transition, I jokingly said that my business card should have been dry erase. We were bought and sold so many times that it was insane. And so ultimately I ended up working through, oh my gosh, I'm so sorry.
Your dog wants to be on the show so bad.
Oh, Ayapa. I put them outside so he did, and they were barking so he let him in. I'm so sorry.
It's like, please let me on the show.
Yeah, well, they'll be fine now that they just know where I am. So sorry.
It's okay.
Anyway, so I eventually ended up transitioning through all these different lines to end up working for Nestle. But during my time, I worked for really great companies. I mean, big ones. I worked for Clorox. I worked for Minute Maid. I worked for Dannon, because we were like a broker and we had all these brands under our roof. So the beautiful thing is somebody coming fresh out of college is that I had a ton of exposure to huge companies and how they went to market. So you really found out a lot about product placement, strategy. One thing that I always really prided myself on was product knowledge. And at one point in that industry, I was door to door. So, I mean, I did everything from, cat food to fresh meat to produce. I mean, I had something in every category. So it was fun.
And my understanding is that the grocery industry is like harsh. It's pretty, very competitive for shelf space.
Yeah, so back when I worked in it, you actually were a salesperson. Like you walked in with sell sheets, you sold pallets, and it was like really about selling. But
Yeah.
the more, as you know, the grocery industry transitioned, that money that we used to have to work to sell things with basically went into cost of goods, and that was pretty much driven by the large retailers, the Walmarts of the world, and they just couldn't afford to do incentive buying anymore. So my job really became more about maintenance, which wasn't what I liked to do.
Yeah.
So yeah, you were basically doing the grunt work, which
Oh, yeah.
is fine, but you're not selling.
Well, I mean, I even think about Girl Scout cookies and how now I feel like selling Girl Scout cookies is so different. I mean, we've seen the videos now on social media of, Girl Scouts selling via social media, and it just seems like a way different sales tactics than I remember growing up. And it's funny how it evolves and changes. Obviously, as we've seen it over the last year, especially, which we'll get into talking about. But that was the first thing I thought about, was how much Girl Scout cookies selling has massively changed.
How selling everything has changed, really. And yeah, so when I left that, I decided I got married, and I had my own shop that I ran for about 5 years. And it got to be where my husband's like, you're gone every weekend, it was in a resort area. So it was just time to do something different. So I started reaching out to different reps who called on me. And I said, if you ever hear anybody opening in the industries. So I went to work for a small group out of Chicago called Michelle Levitt. And I was then recruited by One Coast to come work for them.
Okay.
Yeah. So I worked for One Coast. Well, they actually, once again, I'm the girl who gets sold away, but we were transitioned into a group called Homestyle, and then were purchased by Ivy Stone.
That's right.
So ultimately, I ended up working for Ivy Stone. I think I was with them for 11 years.
Okay.
So,
and I'm assuming your store that you had was it was in a tourist area, so it was everything from home decor and gift and things like that.
So it was Saugatuck, Douglas area, and I used to joke, I don't buy too much that you can't take home in your car with you, because people were there on vacation.
Yep.
And I guess that I always joke that so when you walked into my store, there was like a tiled area, and it was all wood floored, and I used to joke that men couldn't make it past the tile, because they'd walk in, they'd smell, they'd look around and be like, yeah, and they'd turn around, because it was like girl clothes, garden stuff, jewelry.
Well, so that's how it always is. It's like, yeah, typically the female is dragging them in, come on, or just outside.
Yeah, but the girls loved it. So
awesome. Okay, so that's how you got into the industry, and now you've been with us. I'm trying to think of how long you've been with us now.
Well, I started at a horrible time. I started right at the beginning of COVID.
I know. So, it's been over a year, but it's been a really rough year.
Yeah, I think I actually officially signed with you guys. Yeah, it's been almost a year.
Yeah. And
there was a lot of
hell of a year it's been.
Yeah, and being closed down for a couple months, and our state particularly, we have kind of a reputation for being kind of out of control here. Like, I guess the thing about it is that people are always, when I was selling Christmas last year, everybody was like, I'm not buying anything for Christmas because I don't know if I'm going to be open. And so everybody was like, nope.
Yep. Yep.
Yeah. So it was a weird year, but we were open.
Yeah.
And nobody had anything.
Yeah, absolutely. And there were some, a lot of stores that had great sales. So you have had, quite a ride in the industry, starting from, the grocery end of things into your own business, and then into our end of repping home decor and garden and whatnot. And you've worked with, quite a slew of customers. I'm sure that you've seen buying strategies change drastically over the years. What are some main buying strategies that you're seeing now?
Well, I guess so. I didn't really mention it, but when I left Ivy Stone, I worked in the optical business for about 2 years. Loved it. But what I realized is that, so basically the people I were calling were opticians, who were the people who actually fit you for glasses and help you pick them out. But they have absolutely nothing to do with running the business. What do you want, Ben? So, I'm doing my interview. So, I'm so sorry.
It's okay. Everyone wants to be on the show.
This is what working.
You want to be on the show?
He has his glasses on right now, so you'd say no. So anyway, when I was working in optical, what I found out was that like they didn't want me to consult them, to help them grow their business, to build brands, to merchandise, because they were just like, nope.
Just sell us the product.
Well, just fill our shelves, take out what's old, put in what's new. And, you couldn't like really sell them programs. And so I really just felt like an order taker.
Yeah.
And so I think it took that time being away from like the gift and home industry. And like, actually, like when I walk into a small business and I say, listen, this right here is making a lot of money. And I don't know if it's fit for you, but what I am is a reporter. And it's not about my personal taste. It's not about an agenda. It's not about what's most expensive. It's about what I'm just telling you I get reorders on.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
So you look at it as a partnership. You want to be involved in helping grow and expand their business, not just filling their shelves to fill the shelves.
Exactly. When I've always felt like that, like since I've been in gifting and having been on both sides of the counter, what I expected from my reps and what I truly try to be is, particularly in resort communities, for instance, like in Southwest Michigan, we have all that Chicago business all the way up to Traverse City. And so those type of people, they need people who are reactive. And so like, if you're out, I can get this for you like within a week, because they have like 9 weekends and then it's done, so just being sensitive to like that type of customer. And I think that also like what I've been really trying now is to find new customers, particularly in the territory I'm in right now, because it wasn't the strongest part of my old territory. And just really telling people, listen, it's not like you have to buy $1,000 to get into a lot of these companies. Right. And so just try a little bit of it to see what works for you.
Yeah. And also, there's been such a shift over this last year. It's been over a year now of, stores closing, and then a lot of small brand new stores or retailers that aren't even necessarily brick and mortars opening. And the way that people are doing business now is different. It seems like it's harder to find those newbies and all of those things. So finding the new retailers does seem to be a learning curve.
But not only that, but speaking of like selling to a different way, like there are so many young people out there who are opening these just really dynamic boutiques. And it's really a challenge as a salesperson to walk in there and make yourself relevant to them, because I tell people all the time, we have just rep specials. We have just I'm the one who's going to go, who knows the people to call if you have trouble, and because everything they want to do everything online because it's easier. It's a whole lot more convenient. They don't have to take time out of their day to meet with me.
Well, they think it's easier.
Exactly. But in the ultimate long run, when I'm the one who chases down anything they need and can find out when it's shipping and what's in stock, like I said, I think it's just a new barrier just to make them understand that, you're relevant.
Yeah.
What your relevancy is to them.
Yeah. And I think that that's a really good point to touch on is I think that those are the key words. They think that it's easier because there's no doubt that that younger generation grew up online, is very comfortable using all types of online platforms. A lot of them are not that comfortable with people, which seems so strange, even though they're opening stores or retail, but they're still, a lot of them are still doing it behind the screens and everything. But this is a good thing to blast out there that although elements of it may seem easier, you're missing the element of, the service aspect that you and all these other reps give that they can't have by just working on a computer. Like you said, who to follow up with, how to track down their order, how to take care of any issues, how to tell them what the best sellers are or what the items are that have issues,
Right. And like one thing that I've always done, and I tell my stores this, I'm like, when I come to your store, the first thing I do is I walk back to your clearance section because I want to see what didn't work for you. That's and so like particularly if I see my stuff back there, then I'm like, okay, I'm not going to push that hard and heavy, right? If it's not working. But I just had a situation, it was a couple months ago, where I walked into a young girl's store and when I, showed her my line list, she's like, oh, wow, I do like 8 of your lines. And I'm like, well, that's amazing. She's like, but everything you do, I can get online. And she was very curt with me. And I'm like, well, everything you do, I can get online too.
Mm-hmm.
But we're kind of in this together. So people like me support people like you. And if you want people like me to walk through your doors, you have to realize that it's not about, unless you're only selling online, you have to have a community.
Yeah, that's a really good point too. I mean, yeah, anymore everybody can get everything online, so it is a circular, everything has to go back to the service. It's about,
right. And the experience,
the
like
mm-hmm.
who doesn't like to peruse through a nice shop and,
yeah,
see pretty things. And like, even when you go to the trade shows and you see these people who do these dynamic displays, what it does is it's just inspiring for you to do those kind of displays in your own store.
Yes. Yeah. So speaking of, going into stores and being drawn, when you are out in a day, either shopping personally or, checking out an area, looking at stores or whatnot, what do you find what is attracting to you to go into a store?
Well, I guess I'm all about, I'm kind of about the eye candy. You know what I mean? Like if I go into a store, and I know that the first retail store I ever worked in, the woman was just an amazing display person. And she was in Saugatuck. And when I was working the store one day, somebody came in and she was actually the head buyer for Saks Fifth Avenue. Mm-hmm. And she was there visiting friends. It was a pretty wealthy area. And she's like, I don't know who this person is, but I would hire her to be my head merchant, like to do all my merchandisers for all of my stores, which, what a compliment, right? Yeah. And so like when I see anybody who I think really just kind of gets it, like they get, like how people read a display. And what she told me in the beginning is she's like, you want your displays to tell a story that people don't necessarily have that story in their home, but they want to take a little piece of that story home with them. And so what I try to do is I say to people, well, you could, kind of go this direction with a product. You could build this kind of vignette with it. Do you have this section that could be really complementary to it? Do you already do this? This would be a great addition. Like I really try to see if I can get in where I fit in. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that is true. Merchandising is such an art. And I know a lot of times retailers are often looking for merchandisers because really good merchandisers can be really hard to find. And it's really something that's really hard to teach. A lot of people kind of have an eye for it. I mean, it is teachable, but a lot of people naturally have a really good eye for it.
Yeah.
For sure. So what do you feel are the most valuable tools that you bring when working with a retailer?
Well, I got a lot of sales experience for one. So like I know where other people went wrong and other people went right. And for a while, like when the industry was really booming and stuff, and I had people who just weren't making it happen. I said, are you doing any kind of events? Like, what are you doing to get people excited about your store? What makes them want to walk through your front door? Because I'm sure you probably know Mary Liz, who owns the Honolulu. Like, she does like 57 events a year. It's insane. Crazy. And so when they were talking about how the pandemic had affected them over the past year, they talked about, we did our sales like, minus our events. So that was just like, they wanted to see like their baseline compared to, days that they did events. And it was significant. So, I mean, it's relevant. And you want to meet, like, I just feel like, what are you doing to separate yourself from the pack? Yeah. Kind of thing. Because there's a lot of places you can buy cute little things.
It's very true.
You want to have, I tell people, you want to have people come in here for the experience.
Yeah. Well, especially now more than ever when everyone is starting to itch getting back out and, enjoy the experience. And a lot of it is a social element, I mean, being able to go to a shop with some friends or, I love going to stores with my mom. It's a social event too, but it's an experience. You want the full experience of it, especially when there's an event involved.
Well, I even remember you telling that story about how you buy the special Christmas ornaments for your kids. And so you go to that store year after year for the experience. It's a destination for you. And, if you can be that type of person who, I'm not necessarily saying you have to sell like collectibles, but if you just know that you can be somebody's go-to for something that, like in my store, I sold these fabulous bathrobes. And I'd have girls come up there and do girls' weekends.
Oh, yeah.
And like the first girl would come in and buy one, and she'd wear it the first night. And by the end, the whole group had a robe because they were like, "Oh my gosh, it's so soft. It's da 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 da." So I don't know. You just have like kind of anchor products in your store that make you relevant.
Yeah. And actually, sadly, that store that I mentioned in that one show that I went looking for those ornaments for. Sadly, I just saw the other day that they are closing their doors. So, it's always sad to see a retailer go out. I know they had been there for many, many years. But if you missed that episode, it's a good episode to go back to and kind of talk about the variation between overlooking what is available online versus still offering in your store. But anyway, I'll digress about that later. What's your favorite thing about your job?
The favorite thing, well, I love the freedom of it. I love being out on the road. When I worked my way through college, I did it working in restaurants. And so there was like this constant turn of people. No day was ever the same. And I feel like it's very much the same in this job. So you get to go from, well, first of all, you get to spend all of your days in places with really pretty things. Like, so who can fuss about that? My husband says my whole life is a party. I totally agree. So, yeah, he's like, I picture you in your car all day. Hey, girl. And I'm like, yeah, kind of.
Yeah, I mean, now that I think about it,
Right?
whenever we would go out, and still, but we're just starting to venture out again. But when we would go out and meet new people, and people would say, to my husband, what do you do? My husband is a ER. He works in ER. So I would step in often and be like, oh, he saves lives. He works in the ER. He's a nurse practitioner. They'd be like, what do you do? I was like, I make people happy by selling them pretty things.
Exactly. I've said the exact same thing. What do you do? I make the world pretty.
That's right. It's a very important job. Keeping the world pretty. So this is what
I tell my husband, and I'll make this a really quick story, I promise. But I was listening to NPR one day, and they were talking about this guy who decorated the White House, and he had like thousands of man hours put into it. And so they had done these Christmas trees where they had small kids actually do the ornaments, right, from all the different states. Well, one kid, when he pasted his stuff on his ornament, had somehow pasted a picture of a drag queen on there, right? So when they were reporting the decorating in the warehouse or in the White House, somebody like pictured the little drag queen on there. And he's like, you wouldn't believe it. He's like, I put like, it was ridiculous, like almost $6,000 or 6,000 man hours into decorating the White House. And he goes, and it came down to a bulb. And he goes, I got so much criticism about it. And he said, I've decided there's two people in the world. He goes, people who sparkle and people who complain about the sparkle. And so I tell my husband, I'm one of the ones who make the sparkle.
That's right. I like that.
I make it sparkle.
I like that a lot. When you're talking to someone that is considering becoming a sales rep or, considering, joining our industry, what pieces of advice would you give them?
Well, first and foremost, I think that, people, look, they're like, oh, you have all the cute samples, you have all this freedom, and I'd sometimes, well, not sometimes, every January when I'm dragging a sales case through, a half a foot of slush, my coat is covered in car salt. I was like, glamorous. Like, you don't really, people think that your job is like, you walk in, you just collect orders and you flounce out. Well, it very much is like, it's like drilling for oil. Like, you can walk into 10 doors and get nothing but no's and, but then you'll, find that one diamond amongst the rocks and you just hit oil. And that person thinks you're relevant. They want to know what you have to say. They want to hear about your experience. They value what you do.
Yeah.
And so it always seems ironic that the person who's receptive to that is always going to be the person who does better. Mm-hmm. Right. That is like, not that I'm saying they necessarily take my advice, but they at least are building a platform that they can jump off of to know what, I can be like, well, this is what I have retailers that are doing. And a very long time ago, I think probably my second year with One Coast, it was really big when all those like collapsible market baskets were selling. Yeah. So we had a store here in Holland, Michigan, where I live. and they did a promotion where anything that you could fit in one of those market baskets, you got a percentage off. And it was like 20%, but they did it on a Saturday during Christmas season, and they had doubled the most sales they'd ever had in their entire time being open. So, I mean, why not pass that trick on to people, you know?
Yeah.
They hand a little market bag when they walk in, and they said half the time they bought the market bag too. So
That's awesome.
yeah.
So what suggestions would you give new retailers? We're having a lot, as we've talked about before, a slew of new retail opening up, as much as everybody was really concerned as we started to see a lot of businesses shut down. We're certainly seeing a rebuild of new, which, like I said, I'm always sad to see, businesses close, but I'm also very excited to see new open. And it's always very interesting to see, the different dynamics and everything. But a lot of these are building literally from scratch, and this is their first store and everything. What suggestions would you have for them?
Well, so you see a lot of new retailers opening up, and so they and here's what I pretty much I give this advice to every single new retailer. I'm like, do what you do. Don't look left to right. Don't worry about what your neighbor's doing. If somebody comes to you and like maybe it was your vision that you had this line, and then you go to open your store and then you can't have that line. And it's like, don't let that derail your plan, because there's so many options out there. And I just think that a lot of new retailers get caught up on what's going on around them when they should just focus on what's going on in their doors. And I said, my most successful stores don't care what anybody else is doing, because they're doing what they're doing.
That is so true. That's great advice. Whether it's comparing yourself to a big box store that might be, down the street, or, if you're in a little town that's packed with, several little stores, that's great advice. Do what you do, and keep your eyes forward.
Yeah. I have an uncle whose favorite saying was, he's like, you know what? He's like, if you lose a leg, he goes, strap a new one on and get down the road. It's like, you just, like you get so married to the way you think things can be, that, you can't see, okay, well, maybe this line didn't work for me, but, maybe I'll go into this category and, totally separate yourself from the pack.
And, the reality is that is ever evolving, even for stores that have been open for 50 years. I mean, we've certainly seen that in the pandemic, stores that we're so used to relying on certain vendors, and then all of a sudden those vendors couldn't, fulfill, or, for, several different issues. We're still seeing a lot of, the shipping issues and all of those things. You're constantly having to be able to pivot while keeping your head forward and not constantly trying to compare yourself to what others are doing. So
yeah, and that was one thing too, is like, I think during the pandemic, what it did is gave a lot of retailers who didn't find relevancy in having websites and having commerce sites. We saw a big shift in that. Like I've had stores I've called on for 15 years, who all of a sudden are in the game.
Yeah, I know. We've seen a big shift in that. It's one of my personal favorite things that has come out of the pandemic, because I had years of being like, I can't physically get to a store for various reasons, but I want to shop local. What do I do? I don't want to, I don't know. I don't want to do this any other way. So I'm thrilled about seeing a lot of that.
And one of my stores just last week was telling me that she had this like specialty honey that was made in the town where she was at, and she had sourced a really cute little honey pot to go with it, and somehow had done this little, packaged it together for herself. And she said, I had somebody walking through my store and they absolutely loved it. They're like, oh, I really love it. And she's like, oh, I've only got 3 left. She's like, well, is it on your website? Like, she didn't want to carry it. So she's like, well, it's not, but I guess it could be. She goes, well, it could be. She goes, I don't want to carry it home. I'll just, I'd rather have it shipped to me. So she did talk her into buying it that day and said she would ship it to her for, pretty reasonable cost. But I thought, wow, isn't that interesting that you're walking through a store looking at a product and saying, oh.
I mean, it is, but in reality, even if she did have it on her website, that was a great thing that she did, to still, say, if you buy it now, I'll ship it to you, because you never know if someone's actually going to go home and get back on that website and order it, So what a great way that she flipped that around and made sure that she completed the sale without letting her leave the store or, get that product off of her mind. That was, big kudos to her.
Yeah. Well, she's a mover and shaker. So, she's like, I'm gonna make that sale. There's gonna be, there's dollars walking out that door today. So
that's awesome. That's awesome. Well, Annette, thank you so much for all of your awesome information. I've loved hearing about your background, and you had some great tips. I loved the tip about going to the clearance section and checking out what's there, because it's so true. You never want to be the one selling the product that's in the clearance section, from a vendor standpoint. So now, are you ready? I get to hit you with our final 3 questions.
Yes, ma'am.
All right. Question number 1. What is your favorite book, podcast, or blog?
So I just kind of read 2 books. One of them is Untamed, which is, I guess, a really hot book right now. All talks about basically like living your life untamed without, the influence of other people telling you what to do. Great book. And I'm currently reading The 4 Agreements, which is an oldie. It's an old Oprah book, but it just talks about basically like living with intention and realizing, when other things happen. And it's really good, I think, for a sales rep, because they talk about, like, if somebody treats you badly, it's about them, it's not about you. And it's very much about being very cognizant of your words and the power of your words. So, so that one is, because it's fresh in my mind, is really good.
What's the name of that one again?
The 4 Agreements.
The 4 Agreements.
Yeah, so I'll tell you, it was an Oprah book like a million years ago. Like, I'm serious, like 15, 20 years ago. But, it's a really relevant message.
That sounds really interesting. And yeah, definitely, that's a always relevant message that we all need. Okay, what is the most important thing in your toolbox?
I think the most important thing in my toolbox, I think, I did think about this, but I would say just consideration. Like, when I walk into a business, like, I want them to know that I'm considerate of their business and respectful of it. And I just really want my abilities to be a tool to help them grow their business. And I don't want a one and done. I'm looking for reciprocity. I want you to succeed so I succeed.
Yeah.
And I don't walk in there with any other motivation than that. I just want us both to do great.
I really like that tool. That's a great consideration. That's a great tool. I really like that one. I'm telling you, these questions, I love asking these 2 questions. And there's often times that I go back and I am like, I think of all the great answers I've had. So, and the amount of podcasts and everything I've been able to look up, and books and everything I've been able to look up, I'm like spoiled. It's endless. All right. Last final question. Even though we're already almost halfway through 2021, I don't know how this happened, but how do you think retail will continue to evolve through 2021, especially now that over this last week we've had, a big announcement from the CDC, and there's a lot of shifts, happening of companies of all sizes across the country and states and all of those things. How do you think that we're going to continue to evolve as we go into summer and then back into, the holiday season?
Well, I feel like we're really at a jumping off point for a really big momentum. I do. I think that it's interesting. Like, I tell people all the time, I walk into every account with a mask on, and sometimes you'll see, oh, they're here and they're, put the masks on. Other people, they never take their masks off. Mm-hmm. But I think just with that announcement from the CDC, like, already you can tell, like, people like exhaled a little, like, okay, so we're heading in the right direction. And I'm seeing people loosen up. One thing that I've really loved is, talking to different designers that I know, that people have been in their homes so much that they're like, ugh, I'm sick of this. And they want to redo their homes, and they want, I think, to freshen up their lives. And I think that people have become more people focused rather than just like that crazy momentum of, just work and work and work. And yes. I don't know. I just see people, I just think that the things that people that we sell to, like, for people who have stuff that they entertain with and stuff, I just think all of those things are becoming important again.
Yeah. For those of you that might be backtracking and watching, previous episodes, I will say the CDC announcement that just came out is that, masks are no longer, I don't know, don't quote me on the exacts, but I believe it's something along the lines of if you've been vaccinated, you no longer have to wear a mask into every situation. But each private business and stores and whatnot have the ability to make their own rules. So we've seen a lot of shifting of the rules of the mask, mandates per business over this past few days and whatnot. And I do agree with you that even if the business themselves have made the decision for now to continue to, have people wear masks, there's still definitely this letting down of the shoulders kind of feeling like it's coming. We're going in the right direction. Even if it's not right now that we're comfortable with it, we're, we will be soon. I definitely have felt a shift even in myself over this last week. It'll be interesting to continue to see how the remainder of the year goes.
Yeah, I'm excited about it. I mean, I really am. I just think that people are just ready to be around people again. And, I'm just seeing people's smiles and seeing their faces. Cause, when you walk by somebody and they don't look happy, you smile and they smile back. You're like, oh, maybe, it's just nice to see that. And you just don't. And so that'll be nice. We see people's faces again.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. I feel like we're going to have a little bit of a shock of some people that we've only met with masks on, and then eventually we're going to see them with masks off and be like, oh, that's what your full face looks like.
Yeah, I can't tell you how many times I thought, wow, she has pretty eyes. I mean, then the lipstick business must be out of business, right? Because who puts it on?
That's true. It's true. I know, but that's all right. We're getting there. Lipstick will come back shortly. It's on the way. So, all right, Annette, thank you so much for your time. I really enjoyed our conversation. Guys, if you are in, I never say the territory right,
Southwest
Michigan and
Northeast
Indiana. Go ahead and give Annette a call. She is wonderful. Will answer all of your questions. And is really looking for a true partnership, which I always feel is the most important thing, especially in our business. So go ahead and give Annette a call. You can find all of her information on our website. Our website, of course, is www.ansales.com, and just go check out our reps, and she's right there for you. And as always, you can also order online on our website, and Annette still will be able to check it out before and make sure that everything's correct before it goes off to the vendors. So either way, you have the convenience as well as the quality of service at your fingertips for you. And with that, Annette, I hope you have a great rest of your day.
You too, Camille. Thank you.
All right, guys, thank you so much for joining us today. I hope you have a wonderful rest of your week. And just as a reminder, next week we're going to have the sales manager with Frey on and learn more about that line. I'm pretty obsessed with it. And with that, I'll see you soon.